journey.
Highlander! It has like a never-ending story vibe.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking.
What is going down, world? Welcome to the 40-year-old FUQ Boys podcast. I go by the name Black Pegasus.
And it's your boy, Don Mon, and be back in the house once again.
All right, you guys. Now, I've reacted to this. I'm not going to say anything. It's Mike plus, not Mike and, but Mike plus the mechanics, the living years. And I thought I'd put Don in front of it. Now, this is after going through an extensive list of music, asking Don, has he heard of this? And he's heard of everything except for this one. So we're about to check it out, you guys. If you guys are ready for it, let's get it popping. Like, share, comment, subscribe.
40-year-old boys are back in town. 40. Boys are back in town. 40-year-old boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. 40-year-old FUQ Boys podcast. Malt liquor for your ears. 40.
All right, y'all, let me get this logo down and pull the video up. Don't forget, support the original content on the channel. I'm a hip-hop artist, but we also work on other YouTube original stuff. So when we start dropping, support it and, helps us grow. Also, if you want to become a member of this channel, links in the description. There's never obligation, but you get access to the reactions early, perks in the live stream, etc. All right, man, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go on this mystical journey with Mike.
And the mechanics.
It's funny because I'm just like, yo, is that just his name?
They're just
hey, Mike.
Mike and the mechanics, I feel like they're going to have to pull a magical monkey wrench out of a stone.
It's crazy. All right, this is the living
master
years.
mechanic is.
Every generation blames the one before, and all of their frustrations come beating on your door. I know that I'm a prisoner to all my father held so dear. I know that I'm a hostage to all his hopes and fears. I just wish I could have told him in the living years. Oh, crumpled bits of paper filled with imperfect thoughts, still to conversations. I'm afraid that's all we've got. You say you just don't see it. He says it's perfect sense. You just can't get agreement in this present tense. We all talk a different language, talking in defense. Say it loud. Say it loud. Say it clear. Oh, say it clear. You can listen as well as you hear. It's too late. It's too late when we die. Oh, when we die. We don't see eye to eye. So
This song is deep, bro. That's kind of crazy. I can't believe I haven't heard this song before. I feel like I've maybe heard it in the background somewhere, but never really listened to it.
I was actually
That choir part is somewhat familiar, like it was in a movie or something, like some 80s movie.
sometimes though I feel like choirs feel familiar
Yeah,
because
just
people
because it's so iconic.
utilize them
Yeah.
similarly when they drop. But re-listening to this, I was like, golly.
I mean, just that
forgot
intro
how-
part, I kind of got stuck on stupid because I was just thinking how there's so many conversations about how the boomers destroyed, America and how it's so messed up now. But this is what, 30 years old or whatever when this came out, and 40 years old almost. What is it? 50? We're going on 50 years now since the 80s.
Yeah, we start seeing all these cycles. They
and he says at the beginning, like every generation blames the previous one.
In 1996, the legendary songwriter Burt Bacharach declared "The Living Years" as one of the finest lyrics of the last 10 years, musically, lyrically. So it looks like it came out in 1989 and then won Grammys in 1990, which is wild.
Mm-hmm.
This is why when I heard this, I was like, "Oh my Lord, this is a gem."
But then he goes to talk about his father and his father's expectations and how he felt kind of trapped by those expectations, which so many people have those type of relationships where, they have expectations of their family or whatever to do certain things in life. But then the deepest thing that just applies to everything, I mean, he's talking about how he wish he would have had these conversations when he was still alive. And I think about that often, just people in my life that I might have certain disputes with or, whatever. And the fact of the matter is that we're never granted or guaranteed another day.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people will just go through their whole lives holding on to these grudges. And it's like, oh, this person, and never really get to have any type of closure or conclusion or, relationship with certain people in their lives because they just carry on these disputes. And, you don't think that, that person's going to be taken. And sometimes it's like you will never have that relationship be good, but it's like being able to just get something off your chest and be like, hey man, like you messed up, like you weren't a good dad or you weren't, and this is why. Just being able to get those emotions off your chest and have closure for certain things is super healing.
Yeah. Yeah. Replaying this, I was like, oh yeah, this one's crazy.
So we open up a quarrel between the present and the past. We only sacrifice the future. It's the bitterness that lasts. So don't yield to the fortunes you sometimes see as fate. It may have a new perspective on a different day. And if you don't give up and don't give in, you may just be okay. So say it loud. Say it clear. Oh, say it clear. You can listen as well as you hear. Because it's too late. Tell him all the things I had to say. Think I caught his spirit later that same year. I'm sure I heard his echo in my baby's newborn tears. I just wish I could have told him in the living years. So say it loud.
There you have it.
Yeah, man, this is a song I could go off on a tangent on, because it's like, he's talking about his relationship with his father. And yeah, I mean, it brings up a lot of emotions for me regarding my dad, because we have kind of a interesting dynamic between the two of us. And he talks about holding on to bitterness.
Yeah.
And what does he say is that he said something about like you're damaging the future or something and holding on to bitterness.
Yeah, he said bitterness lasts.
Yeah.
Or something.
But yeah, that's what he's talking about. It's like holding on to these things, and all you're doing is throwing that into the future. Mm-hmm. And just even seeing the dynamic of him, like with his son at his father's grave, it's just very, very interesting. I mean, I had to personally go through this. I still am going through it with my dad. Like it's going to be something that I always deal with my dad. Like he lost his phone, right? So he wants me to buy a new phone. He calls me and he's like, hey, I need you to get me a new phone. But of course it's not just like a new phone. I want the i15 Pro Max. Bro, he's got this list of like the most expensive phone that he wants. And it's just wild because, he was never there for me growing up in that sense of financially supporting my mother.
He wasn't
or
there
me.
for you for emotional support either. Nothing.
No, this is what I'm saying.
He wasn't there.
So that's where, something like this is a very deep song, and it makes me wonder, like, what he went through. I mean, I'd imagine this is real because the song is so real. And I personally had to go through that myself of like first being angry, a lot of self-destructive habits that even continue to this day. I mean, you brought it up on the last thing. I don't know. Are you going to tell the people? Yeah. So I'll just blurt it out. I got a DUI a couple weeks ago. I've struggled with drinking. I brought it up on the podcast before, right? And some of that, stuff stems from just early childhood. I mean, I told you a story that I figured I'd shared with you at some point.
Yeah.
But just telling you about like getting high with my dad when I was like 10 years old, him buying liquor for me when I was 14, and how the hardest part of getting a DUI was going to jail and then having to tell my son where I was at. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep.
And look him in the eyes and explain to him why I disappeared for 2 days, So part of the reason this song is so touching is because I have to let go of that anger. Like I've still have those emotions that come up because I'm like, how, as a father, I could never imagine passing my son a joint when he's 10 years old. Yeah. I can never imagine, buying a 40-ounce, multiple 40 ounces of liquor and giving it to my son now at 15. I look at him and I'm like, he's a child. Like, how could you do that? Right. But then on the opposite side of that is there are a lot of valuable lessons that I learned from my father. He never was the dad that I wanted, that person that I could look up to even to this day. Like I wouldn't call him for advice, for life advice, because he's never really lived a life of responsibility. So I can't talk to him about what it's like to be a responsible adult because he's never done that. Yeah. He's never like bought a house or, hasn't owned a car for 30, 40 years, just very simple things. I have to take care of him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've had to take care of him ever since I was like 15 years old. I gave him money. So it's like a song like this is so deep and touching because it's a reflection of somebody's real life experience and having to come to terms, maybe in a different way, right? Different dynamics. But at the same time, it's like I had to let go of bitterness. So I just vibe with this because that was the thing for me, is to be able to accept my dad for who he was and who he wasn't, be able to take the lessons that I could from him and then let go of that anger in order to move on. And obviously, like I said, with getting a DUI a couple weeks ago, I'm in the midst of dealing with some of those repercussions of, my earlier life, coming to terms with them. But the biggest thing for me was the interaction with my son and being like, hey man, like, I have these responsibilities and I want to show up for him in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, it's real, man. I got lucky because my relationship with my dad, I'm not going to go into some spiel because he's still here and it's been, my dad's way different. Like, right, he's responsible, but there's some emotional connection missing.
disconnect that's always been there. I've known that because we've talked about it as friends.
But as now, it's like we're getting super close as he's getting older and stuff, and that's what's cool. I feel like I'm at this point where I've mended a lot of things. The only relationship I want to mend is the relationship with my brother, man. Like, that's insane. But anyways, that's a whole nother story for a whole different time and era. But
well, I got to ask you this. Have you like gone out and told your father, like, thank you for, being there in the way that he has been there, like explicitly?
yeah, we were walking. I don't know, he's been going since my mom passed. He's had a lot of ups and downs, and when he breaks up with like his girlfriends or whatever, I can sense now he's kind of comfortable being alone, but it took a while to get to where we're at now. I just remember we were on a walk and he just stopped and he's like, son, I've never really told you this, but I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'm thankful for you. And I was just kind of floored because he's never, as I go through life.
Okay. When did this happen?
Probably 2 or 3 years ago during the pandemic.
Bro, think about that, man. I just have to reflect on that because this is what this song is literally about, right? Say it while they're alive. At this time, you would have been like, what, 42 years old?
Yep.
40 years old?
41.
So 40 years old, he says, I've never told you this.
And and it's interesting. And then, I told him, I'm very open. When my mom passed, I had to take on some of her attributes as the communicator and the glue to the emotions, because everyone's just so quiet about it. And I don't know, naturally I just was open, and I always, I'm just, me and him talk a lot now. Like, we talk, I hang out, and it's cool. We're open. It just feels good. It feels like a good relationship. It's actually kind of scary because sometimes going out on a bad note could be easier because you can be colder than going out on a good note because it will hurt more,
Yeah.
And that's just where we're at. We're just like, I'm actually closer to him now. And what's really great about all of this is he may not know this, but the upbringing he gave me, I learned how to self-correct and be not the perfect father, but I'm a pretty damn good dad, like I'm pretty balanced in the way, I correct my children, the way I upbring them, etc. But that's because of him, like his lack of emotion. I make sure my kids know I love them. I'm sensitive to certain things. I'm stern when I need to be. But that moment that it's over and they've learned the lesson, it's like, hey, it's not, oh, this hurts you more than it hurts me. It's like, no, I love you, you know, and just doing things that they didn't do. But that's because I learned it from them. Yeah. I learned how
to self-correct. I mean, that's the same thing with my dad. Like, I look at who I didn't want to be as a father. Yeah. That's what it was. I mean, it's a tough lesson, but it's like, hey, I don't want to be that as a father. So I'm going to do a different thing and react in a different way. And, when he's talking about like, you can listen as much as you hear, there's something very deep in that. Like, for me, one of the things that helped me to be able to move on is to take my own feelings aside and what he did to me, my story of how he abandoned me, all this, and ask him, what was your childhood like? What was your relationship like with your father? And then what I realized is his dad was never there. Later in life, we found out he had 2 families. So his mom was a side chick, basically. Yeah. Right. My grandma, great grandma, this whole other family, history that went on with these type of things involved and infidelities and other families on the side, and then his dad wasn't really there for him. So he overcorrected and wanted to be a friend. Yeah. Cause he didn't have the dad. Yeah. So again, it's like easy to just place that blame, but I wouldn't have reacted the same way, but he was dealing with his own trauma, if you will, about his relationship with his dad.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a detailed correlation for me. When I was young, I hated baseball, absolutely hated baseball for a very long time. It was because when we were playing t-ball and we'd mess up, my dad was our t-ball coach. He was our basketball coach. He did it, but he just screamed at me, and I just remember having a meltdown. Very young, probably 4, 5. Probably 5. I don't know when you start playing t-ball, and I was like, I hate this, and I held that till I was a man. And I realized because I coach my daughter's jiu-jitsu class, and I'm like, I have to, like, I can't scream at her. I have to have, because I realized that one little mistake he made that he doesn't even know he made me hate something for my whole life, which isn't his fault.
Dude, I did that to my grandma. I mean, it's crazy because like I got my grandma blamed me for doing something that I didn't do. One of my cousins did it, and they put the blame on me. She whooped my ass for it. Like literally, she always used to hit us with the switch. And from that day on, I always blamed her for being like a bad, mean woman. And I didn't realize it till at her funeral. She was poor. She didn't have shit, right? And all these people in the community like showed up talking about how she gave like every last penny that she had, you know, to help them. And I was like, damn, man, like I went my whole life mad at her for something that happened when I was like 10 years, 12 years old and never forgave her for that. And like I would see her on holidays. I love you, but I wouldn't go the extra mile to go visit her and see her because she was a good lady, right? But I just had that
you had the stigma.
interaction and that stigma that she's wrong and she beat me for no reason, right? And I always held that against her. And it wasn't until she died, like exactly what this song is about. And I'm sitting at her funeral thinking about like, you know, how I never like forgave her.
Yep. And this is
over a simple mistake.
And that's the crazy thing. We have to remember we make mistakes.
Yeah.
And yeah. I remember anyways, I'm going to get off this, you guys. This is a good conversation piece. But
definitely.
This started, like, there's been times where I've gotten way too loud, like out of anger with my daughter, and it scared her. Yeah. And those are the times where I'm like, oh my God, I feel like a absolute garbage person for like 2 days. But me and my daughter are like super tight with our relationship. And it's just funny, man. Like, if you're open with them, those mistakes are easy to get over. And that's what I think as humans, we have to be able to just be like, yo, we're clumsy humans. We make mistakes. Be open to these things because, man, you just said it. I mean, we both gave very good examples. It's funny that this song triggered that type of conversation, which this is like the conversations I want to just have on a podcast, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, this is cool. So anyways, you guys, tap it in the comments. Let us know what you've been through. I think this is a great song. That's why I put him in front of it. I've already reacted to this. And I think you guys will enjoy this reaction, but we'll catch you on the next one. Bodie.
Thank you for being some man. 40 years down the road, back again. FUQ boy.